You might recall the case of John Alabi. He is an immigrant to Canada from Nigeria, came here with nothing really, and worked his way up as hard as he could, taking jobs and finally becoming, well, a bit of a landlord himself. He lived the Canadian dream. But then one of his tenants, well, took him to the Human Rights Tribunal. You see, John is Christian, and one of his tenants was a Muslim family that objected to John not taking his shoes off in the apartment. They said it was anti-Muslim discrimination, and in a shocking decision, well, not shocking to those of us who know the human rights tribunals, they won a multi-$1,000 penalty against John. Well, when we heard that, we said, John, we got to fight this. And we crowdfunded the legal appeal, which happened in Toronto. John joins me in studio now. John, good to see you again. Thanks for being back here.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I understand that there was a hearing at Osgoode Hall, the very senior courthouse in downtown Toronto. We have your lawyer, Uche Bekara, on the line via Skype. I'm going to ask him how it went, and then I'll come back to you for your personal reactions, okay?
That's okay.
All right. Joining us now via Skype is Uche Bekara. Uche, you're the lawyer who has been fighting for John. We crowdfunded the appeal. Tell us how it went.
Firstly, Ezra, thank you for having us on, and thank you for having me. So we heard the appeal at the divisional court for a panel of 3 judges, and the decision that came down was, from a procedural standpoint specifically, the Human Rights Tribunal did not err in the way that they arrived to their decision. Now, what I tried to make John understand, and all the parties that have had interest in this, is when you do a judicial review on a matter, you're not reviewing the contents of the matter, you're actually reviewing the process of the matter, because as we all know, these tribunals are quasi-legal, and they have standing, and their decisions have to be given the same respect as that of a superior court judge or a court of appeal judge.
All right, now I want to, I'm a former lawyer myself, I want to translate that for our lay viewers who may not know the legal jargon. In a nutshell, the earlier tribunal ruling against John was upheld. John did not win his appeal. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So, and the reason, though, and this is, I think, the point you were making, is that they didn't rehear the case. They didn't have new evidence. They just checked to see if the Human Rights Tribunal had a flawed process. Is that a fair statement?
That's the exact statement, and that's the exact ruling that they followed. I mean, I presented about 2.5 hours of submissions, kind of going over the points of everything, and if the process itself of how they came to that decision may have had errors. And I mean, what people need to understand is, from a factual standpoint, you might get heated, you might get involved in this, and you might say it might be right or wrong, but that's not the job of this judicial panel. Their job was not to look at the fact. Their job was to look at if our justice system, the mechanics of our justice system, are working correctly.
Right. Now, in some measures, this case is small potatoes. The amount of money at hand isn't multi-millions, it's multi-thousands. And John is not a massive landlord with thousands of tenants. He just, you know, is a pretty small guy. But I was shocked to learn that there were 4 lawyers on the other side against John. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the judicial review was on the Human Rights Tribunal, so they presented Crown Counsel or government counsel to represent the tribunal, and their position was just strictly, we followed the correct procedures, we did our job, our decisions are sound, etc. The other lawyers, or the other 2 parties, so just sorry to correct you, it was 3 lawyers present in the actual courtroom with myself, so 4 lawyers altogether, you're right, was the Madcour's lawyers who work for a human rights kind of legal clinic that's located in downtown Toronto. And their position was that their clients were owed the money because of the reasonings that they came to in the actual Human Rights Tribunal decision.
Huh. Now, I spoke with you briefly the day of the appeal, and you said you felt this was an important case for the public interest. It wasn't just about John and how he was wronged. You said to me that this has a precedent for everyone in Ontario and potentially beyond Ontario's borders. Can you talk a little bit about the precedent that this sets? And you mentioned, by the way, that John's Christian and his tenants are Muslim, but this could affect anyone. Give me a little bit about what the public interest here might be?
So the precedent that this sets is not about the religions themselves. It's not about Christians or Muslims. It really just signifies that if there is a religion to respect, or there's a creed that's been presented, a landlord has to respect that and show that accommodation and the duty to accommodate. In the case of John, because he's a smaller landlord or a smaller time, it makes it more difficult for him to do so. And what this creates is it helps out the commercial landlords or the larger ones that can get agreements that talk about a person's religious practice, that they can essentially kind of put into a contract and say that these are the things that you need to provide me. Where in John's case, we were arguing over, was there notice, was there the duty to accommodate? And what this does from the government standpoint is it gives you a precedent or a decision that, and don't forget, it was not just John Alabi, but it was Comfort Alabi as well, that says that they are human rights violators and that they did it knowingly or unknowingly. And that's the hard, shocking reality that we're dealing with in this.
When I talked to you at court, I said, look, Yucha, I think this is an important case too, and you generously offered to reduce your regular fee. I'm really glad for that, and you volunteered it. I didn't even suggest it. Can I ask you how much you need? How much money do you need for the hearing that you went to? We encouraged John to fight. You fought for him. We said we'd help. So what's the damage here?
So we discounted my hourly. So my regular hourly is somewhere in the 400 range. I discounted down to 350, and the bill standing, I mean, tax in is about 12,200. And John also got essentially dinged by the Human Rights Tribunal lawyers for $5,000 in costs that's payable to the clinic for the time and effort because he lost. And that's just the way that our justice system works.
So about 12 and a half for you and 5 to pay the other side's lawyers. I hate that very much, but that is the order and that is the risk of litigation. Yuchi, I'm going to talk to John now, who's been sitting next to me. John, when we heard this news that you were found guilty of human rights violations because you didn't take your shoes off in your own apartment, I thought it was outrageous, and we offered to help. And our viewers said, fight, we got to appeal. And we convinced you to appeal, and unfortunately we lost. I think it's our obligation to pay this bill because we pressed you into fighting. And I'm going to ask our viewers to help. I'm going to chip in the first $100 myself. I want to ask you a tough question. Do you want to keep fighting another round? Because we lost this round. We've got to raise almost 20 grand. Do you want to go back to living a normal life and get out of this fight? It's been years already. Or do you want to fight another round? I mean, you could try and fight another round, but it's an uphill fight. You've done a bigger fight than anyone else could normally be called upon. What do you want to do?
Thank you so much, first of all, for all the helps you've given me over the years. I appreciate that. And also, this is to everybody out there that has helped so far. Thank you so much. I appreciate your effort, and you know what, this is not just for me, it's for every other person that might walk into this kind of mind line in the future. So coming back to your question regarding if I want to fight again, you know what, this does not define me. It does not define me, and I don't want it to define any other person outside there that is going through stuff like this. Because there are much more important things in life than to go after somebody for money's sake, than to go after anybody for one gain or the other in the pretense of being a Muslim or a Christian. So for me, this is not a do or die. I have much more important things going on in my life. I have life event stuff that is going on. So right now, I have not got to that stage whereby I want to proceed with another appeal or anything, because to some extent it's like I'm going down the drain. I'm going to their level of thinking of, because their level of thinking, the other side is do or die. It's either their way or the other way. So morally, my upbringing is not like that. So that is why I keep on saying, and I will keep saying this. For anybody who is interested, this does not define me. It does not define where I come from. It does not define who I am. And I have much more important things in my life. So for
I believe
now,
that, John, and I think you're right. You don't want this to, you don't want to be dragged down to their level. But let me put the question very clearly. You have fought harder than anyone else should have to fight, and we encouraged you to do that. We sort of pressed you into fighting, and you did. Is this the end of the line for you, or do you want to go another round? Be a little more clear, because I think you're saying you've done your tour of duty. You want to get on with your real life now. Is that correct?
To be honest with you, to some extent, I would say yes, because I mean, this is just a waste of time, to some extent, and the only reason why I want to keep fighting this is because I don't want this thing to happen to another person. I don't want anybody from anywhere to get into this kind of situation that I am today for these petty reasons of insinuating things that does not help the human race. So for now, I'm sorry, my friend. I still have to keep it to a corner in my heart, and I just don't want, you know what, like I said, I'm here because I don't want it to happen to anybody. I'm here because it's not because I have the money to pay them, but I'm here because I don't want this thing to happen to anybody. So by and large, it depends on you guys helping me too. So let me know what you think. Let me know where we go from here. It's worth fighting for, but at the same time, we should not bring ourselves to their level. Their level is either I get you or nothing.
All right. Well, let me bring back Uche, because I want to ask what the next steps are. Uche, are you still there?
Yep.
Now, I mean, John is a little bit ambivalent here. I mean, he doesn't want to be dragged down. He doesn't want this to define him. I absolutely get that. I mean, these human rights tribunals can trap you for years. He says, you know, to some degree, it's if we can help pay for an appeal. I understand that too. I mean, 20 grand's a lot of money. Can I ask you, is there another route of appeal? One of the things you told me when I saw you down at the courthouse, Uche, was that, and you mentioned it again today, that this appeal only looked at the process. It couldn't bring new facts or witnesses. And I want to mention something that's a little bit sensitive, and I didn't raise it, but John didn't raise it, but I'll mention it. When this thing was heard originally by the Human Rights Tribunal, John's son committed suicide. And I'm so sorry to mention such a personal thing, but I think it's relevant, because obviously that dominated your mind and you were distracted, and yet this Human Rights Tribunal insisted on having a hearing in the middle of your family crisis. So obviously your testimony and what was said in court was not important at the time, and those are the facts that this appeal was stuck with. And I just wanted to say that because you didn't bring it up, because I know you don't want to emphasize that, but I think it's legally relevant. Uche, is there anything we can do to get fresh facts before a court? Is there any appeal here, or should we throw in the towel? You tell me.
Well, it's an important thing that you brought that up, and it's a sensitive subject, very difficult to talk about. And I'm not going to be the first person to profess that I understood what John and his family went through. But it's a monumental aspect of this, because it actually led to just John being the only person that was present at this hearing at the Human Rights. And what people tend to forget is that it wasn't John's name that was just on this matter. It was John and his wife that were, being essentially prosecuted against, saying that they violated the Human Rights Code. But the only evidence, and the only oral evidence that was given, was from John himself. Now, from an appeal standpoint, you're right. From the procedural, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing to appeal at, because what they did was right as per the procedure and the flow of the legal process. But new evidence is also a grounds for appeal. And in this case, if I could plead to Comfort Alabi to come forward and at least put some fact to this, put some new fact to this, because what actually happened, and from what John told me, over the years, is, you're right, this has been going on for a long time, is not what was presented to the tribunal. And given the scenario, that was what happened, and you can't really expect more from that. But if there's a chance for this to be overturned, if there's a chance for John to have this not put against him, we would need something at least from his family. And if we could plead to that and get that going forward, that might be the best grounds. And he's now on a time clock, and that's the other problem, because to appeal something, you have 30 days from the date of the decision. So.
Well, you alluded to Comfort Alabi. Obviously, the stress of the crisis, both the personal crisis and the human rights crisis that was foisted on them, has done a tremendous damage to the family in general. Listen, I don't want to go too much deeper into the family's trauma. Here's what I want to do. And Uche, I really appreciate you joining us via Skype, and I met you at the courthouse last week. And John, thank you for being here today. I believe that we at the Rebel have a moral responsibility to pay your bills, because we're the ones who said, along with our viewers, fight this, don't succumb. And you fought it hard despite the emotional challenges, that we've just alluded to here. So I want to pay your bills to date. Uche mentioned that if you're going to appeal this and if you're going to try and get fresh evidence, it has to be done within 30 days of the hearing. I'll wait for you and your lawyer, Uche, to get back to me on that, because it sounds like you're still conflicted on that.
Yes.
I will ask our viewers to help pay the bill that we've incurred. The $12,500 to Uche, and unfortunately, that's what happens when you lose an appeal, the $5,000 to the 3 lawyers on the other side. And by the way, it's outrageous that it was 3 against 1 here. John, thanks for being, for recognizing and thanking our donors. Let's you and I talk within 2 weeks. My goal is to raise the funds to pay your bills to date. And in 2 weeks' time, confer with your lawyer, and we'll decide, based on your views, whether or not we appeal. Can I give you the last word to say to our viewers? Because this is a very emotional case, and I can feel your emotion, and I was listening to your lawyer. Let me give you the last word, because I've been talking too much here.
Well, once again, thank you so much for everything. I know you are not doing this thing for only me, but you are doing it for every other person that might come across stuff like this. And like I said, this does not define any one of us on the good side. We have much more important things going on in our lives, and we will continue to be as human being, as a better human being as we are. The fact that I am reluctant to take it further or backward does not mean that I'm afraid. It does not mean that I'm a coward. It's just that I don't want to, first of all, waste your time and energy. I don't want to waste your hard-earned dollars, unlike the other side that goes around and on people to get this kind of money from them. To be honest with you guys, it's all about the money and nothing else.
For the other side?
For the other side. Yeah. It's all about the money. And that is so sad to see that even a human rights court that was supposed to help human beings to some extent was a part of this sham. So right now, my only stuff is this. If you're a lawyer, if you're a tenant, if you're a landlord, just be very, very, very careful on who you accept on your property and how you deal with them.
All right. Well, John, nice to see you again, and I'm sorry for the trauma that you've been put through. It's a great ordeal. Folks, if you want to help pay John Alabi's bill, go to helpjohn.ca. As you heard, Uche Bekara, the lawyer who did his best to press this case at Osgoode Hall last week in Toronto, his bill is about $12,500, which I think is very reasonable considering the amount of work done. Unfortunately, we have to pay $5,000 to the creditors here as well. That's about $17,500. Go to helpjohn.ca. And it sounds like John and his lawyer have to do some more conferring. If they decide to appeal, I will let you know. Otherwise, let this man have some peace and move on with his life. A traumatic experience at the hands of Canada's human rights tribunals. He wasn't the first. Unfortunately, he won't be the last. Go to helpjohn.ca. John, nice to see you in person.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your help. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
right. Go to helpjohn.ca.